So we've come up with this nifty definition of a relational community of flourishing, and it really has three primary parts. The first part is really about joy and how that kind of enables courage and resilience. The second part is really about nurturing emotional and spiritual growth and creating safe spaces. And then the final piece is really about what happens even when life is difficult. And so just my reflections have been very much centered around joy. And I've really been influenced by teaching a course with Mary Clark Michella, who actually wrote a book called Caring for Joy. And she's really helped me think about joy as something that isn't just about happiness. It isn't just about positive emotions, but is really is robust enough to hold the wide range of emotions. To be human, for instance, is to feel. And it's not always to feel happy, but it's also to be able to empathize and to mourn with those who mourn and rejoice with those who rejoice. That being human is about being able to experience a wide range of emotions, including life feeling well. And so the way I've begun to articulate joy is I've begun to articulate it as hope that has become alive in response to, because of, and in relationship to all that we encounter in life.
One of the myths, I think, around adolescents is that they don't like to talk. They don't talk. And in every context I've ever worked with adolescents in, they want to talk. They need to be provided with a space, a safe space, where they feel heard instead of judged, and where they feel supported instead of alone. Yeah. And they feel courage instead of fear. And youth groups can be that place in the presence of God where they can talk to each other and hear each other. And leaders can model unconditional love and support. They can teach practices of flourishing and coping skills so that youth know that there is hope and that they are not alone. They don't suffer alone. They don't have to suffer in silence. And these communities can develop traditions of talking to each other around these very difficult topics that they're experiencing in their lives. And the support and the connection in the community that they find in those groups can be very powerful and healing for them. And
well, as you're talking about that, and Sarah, what you were mentioning, really what resonates so strongly with me is hope coming alive. And so, hope isn't something that you do. It's actually more of an approach to life, a way of being. And I think that's the piece that's so important around what we more traditionally in the field of psychology call resilience. So it's not a lack of negative emotions, but experiencing, acknowledging all emotions, and then figuring out how that's a part of your narrative while maintaining this approach to life that includes hope. And I think this is where youth ministers can really help kids who are struggling. And, I can think of the example where someone might have been through a suicidal crisis and they go through all of the pain that's entailed in the treatment, and maybe they've even been hospitalized, but then to come back and not focus on the suicidal crisis itself, but on the person and what they're bringing and how they're still a valued and important member of the community and how they're welcomed back without judgment, I think is critically important in terms of youth being able to understand, how did that part of my life contribute to what I'm experiencing now? How do I maintain that hope and faith? And when it's hard for me to do that, who am I looking at that's modeling that for me? So even if I don't feel it internally at the moment, I see it reflected outwardly. And how do I maintain that connection to some higher connection in my life that I feel will be protection and will continue to give me hope. So I love the idea of hope coming alive as such an integral part of the definition, and I really see that as such a meaningful and I think long-lasting impact that youth ministers can really have when working with youth.